What's your favorite copy pasta? Oh, the military dude. The one with the military guy that's like,
Fuck you say to me, you little shit!
you know the one. Oh, that one! What the fuck did you just fucking say about me, you little bitch? I'll have you know I graduated top of my class in the Navy SEALs, and I've been involved in numerous secret raids on Al-Qaeda. I have over 300 confirmed kills. I am trained in guerrilla warfare. And I'm the top sniper in the entire US Armed Forces. You are nothing to me. Just another target. I will wipe the fuck out of you with precision, the likes of which has never been seen before on this earth. Mark my fucking words. Oh, you think you can get away with saying that shit to me over the internet? Think again, fucker. As we speak, I am contacting my secret network of spies across the USA, and your IP is being traced right now. So you better prepare for the storm, maggot. That was probably not a maggot, side note. The storm that wipes out the pathetic little thing you call your life. You're fucking dead, kid. I can be anywhere, anytime, and I can kill you in over 700 ways. And that's just with my bare hands. Not only am I extensively trained in unarmed combat, but I have access to the entire arsenal of the United States Marine Corps, and I will use it to its full extent to wipe out your miserable ass off the face of the continent, you little shit. If only you could have known what unholy retribution your little clever comment was about to bring down upon you. Maybe you would have held your fucking tongue, but you couldn't. You didn't. And now you're praying the path, you goddamn idiot. I will shit fury all over you and you will drown in it. You're fucking dead, kiddo. That's my favorite copy pasta.
10 out of 10 voice acting, Lily.
Thank you. Did you practice that a lot?
I am actively shitting my pants and regretting my existence.
Thank you. Did you practice that a lot? No. This is actually the first time I've done a dramatic reading of that copy pasta. I just did that on the fly. Improv, baby! We need Lily to read the sugar-free Haribo Gummi Bear Airport TSA review. Oh no. Own a musket for home defense, since that's what the founding fathers intended. 4 ruffians break into my house. What the devil? As I grab my powdered wig and my Kentucky rifle. Blow a golf ball size hole through the first man. He's dead on the spot. Draw my pistol on the second man. Miss him entirely, because of its smooth bore and nails and the neighbor's dog. I have to resort to the cannon mounted at the top of the stairs, loaded with a grape shot. Tally-ho, lads! The grape shot shields the men in the... What the devil is like my favorite thing. Lads, the grape shot shreds 2 men in the blast. The sound and extra shrapnel set off car alarms. Fixed bayonet and charge the last terrified police. Bleeds out, waiting on the police to arrive, since the triangular bayonet wounds are impossible to stitch up, just as the founding fathers intended. No, hold on. Now I have to get the TSA fucking sugar-free Haribo Bears one. See you in hell, Haribo sugar-free gummy bears. It was my last class of the semester, and the final exam was worth 30% of our grade. After a late night study session, I felt confident. But I had to decide between sleeping in or cooking breakfast. My eyelids chose sleep. My stomach later regretted this decision. And after several uncomfortable stomach growls, I finally decided to make a quick stop by the campus bookstore and grab a snack before my test. Since the semester was ending and everyone was going home for the summer, a lot of items were on sale, including the snacks and candy they kept on front. Being in the hungry state that I was in, it felt only logical to pick the largest, yet least expensive candy in order to get more bang for my buck. And there they sat. 2 bags of Haribo sugar-free gummy bears. Buy 1, get 1 free. What a deal, I thought naively. I would eat 1 bag before my test. Oh, and 1 bag afterwards. As I walked to class, I gleefully chewed on those abominable little bastards, unaware of the utter mayhem they would soon unleash upon my poor anus. I sat down at my desk as the professor informed us that due to issues with cheating in the past, restroom breaks would be prohibited until the completion of the exam. I'll give you 10 minutes to use the restroom now. This will be your last chance. Any takers? The demon bears had not yet released their unholy necromancy upon my stomach. So in my moment of ignorant foolishness, I remained seated, still munching on those miniature bear-shaped bombs. After After the students wise enough to take the professor's offers had returned, the professor handed out the test. I was 6 questions in when it happened. It started subtly at first, almost like a slight tingly sensation in my lower abdomen. I thought nothing of it, assuming my intestines were just doing their thing. Little did I know that my intestines were trying desperately to warn me of the horror that was on the horizon. By question 9, it happened again. But this time, it was followed by a sharp pain, as if those infernal hellions had orchestrated an attack upon my colon. I fought to contain the groan that tried escaping my lips. It was at this point I began to panic. Something was going horribly wrong, and I needed to get through this test before it got any worse. By question 14, my worst fear was upon me. The Satan bears, burning hot, liquidy dark magic crashed against my anal sphincter like a tidal wave. I was able to close the hatch just in time, but those relentless, toxic bears beat against it like orcs breaking down the door of Helm's Deep. I knew I would not be able to so much as shift in my seat without risking a breach. I kept fighting through my exam, clenching my cheeks with all my might. Beads of sweat began rolling down my neck. And suddenly, a loud, gurgling war cry came from my belly. The entire class lifted their heads. At this point, nothing mattered, except expelling this ungodly presence from my bowels. With 15 questions left, I promptly wrote C for every answer and ran out of the classroom. My professor yelled something, but I was too preoccupied with the volcanic eruption that needed to take place before I could find sweet relief. I burst into the restroom like the Kool-Aid Man, and behold, the handicap stall was empty. Sun rays from the adjacent window shone upon it, as if it were a gift from God himself. It took me less than 0.5 seconds to undo my belt buckle, pull down my pants, and finally relax my weary buttocks upon the toilet seat. It took absolutely no effort to expel this demon. Almost immediately, the floodgates of hell were opened, and the damned, liquefied souls of an entire bag's worth of gummy bears cried as they burned through my sphincter and into the watery abyss below. I had never felt such simultaneous relief and anguish in my life. After 30 more minutes of this, I immediately went home, dug a hole in my backyard, and burned the remaining bag of gummy bears. I leave with this. Do not, I repeat, do not eat these spawns of Satan. Not only did they cause me to fail my final test, but the anguish I experienced is something I would not wish upon anyone, not even my worst enemy. The only place these god-forsaken hellbears belong are buried deep below the Earth's surface. The end. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Fucking copy pasta, fucking reading, dramatic reading. My butt is clenched. Oh, if that didn't make you immediately clench your cheeks, I don't know what to tell you. Brava, thank you! There's many gummy bear stories. This isn't the only one. Hell holds no surprises for me anymore. A sugar-free Haribo Gummi Bears Amazon review. Trigger warning. I would consider myself a prudent man, not given to bouts of outspokenness or craving attention, and certainly not one to rock the boat. On any given day, I can be found reading a crime novel on a park bench in the middle of the city, soaking in the opulence of nature while nibbling on tuna fish sandwiches and fending off the voracious skulls and squirrels that threaten to spoil my repose. This is me. Law-abiding and introspective. Which is why it came as a shock to me to find myself incarcerated because of the devil's confectionery, Satan's sweetmeat, Lucifer's lozenges, the horror that is known as Haribo sugar-free gummy bears. I'll set the scene. It was late winter / early spring in Toronto, and the city had just been digging itself out from a late season snowstorm. I was heading to Pearson International Airport for a red-eye flight to Amsterdam in order to give the Dutch arm of our company some training on the new software that had been installed. I'm deliberately being vague to prevent my place of work from being linked in any way to the incident that occurred. I had just finished packing, checked the time, and found I was running late. My flight was at 7:10 p.m., and it was now almost 5 p.m. Cursing softly, I ran out to the car and threw my bags in the trunk, hitting the gas a little harder than usual in my haste to make it to the long-term parking lot as soon as possible. Luckily, traffic was light on the 401, and I made it to the airport in record time. But I knew my chances of making it to the flight were still at risk if I did not use my time wisely. I had not eaten since lunch, and I was feeling a bit hungry, my stomach rumbling loudly in protestation, which caused me to look around the other travelers rushing past me in the busy terminal, mortified that my bodily noises might be heard by others. I briskly checked my watch and decided that I had enough time to grab a quick snack before going through the baggage check and security. I would get something more substantial once I was checked through security. I spotted a vending machine nestled in a relatively low-traffic corner of the terminal and rushed over, already pulling out my credit card and mentally assessing what I had cravings for so as to save time for interacting with the machine. My eyes scanned the colorful array of confection quickly, coming to rest on a tantalizing, rainbow-colored bag of gummy bears with the simple white and red logo, Haribo, emblazoned across the bag in what appeared to be a slightly tweaked Helvetica rounded font. Now, I'd pause here in the story for a moment to underscore the importance of making proper choices. I was hungry. When you're hungry, you should eat food. Food is defined as a nutritious substance that people consume to maintain life. That is what food is. These days, the definition of the word food has been bastardized, and the meaning has been broadened to include relatively any material that can be digested, or rather, chewed and swallowed without causing death or severe illness. Haribo sugar-free gummy bears are not food. They aren't even from this planet. I imagine their origins being conceived in a boardroom in hell by a top team of creative pain administrators with senior-level demons rubbing their hands together in ghoulish delight as hell's chief chemists slowly lifted the veil for their new creation.
We solved an energy crisis the world had no answer for.
The point here being, I made a very, very, very poor choice. I pushed the button, and the vending machine ejected the brightly colored bag into my awaiting hands. I had always liked gummy bears. They were bright, but rather innocuous. They weren't overly sweet as to become cloying. And, of course, each candy came in the visage of a rather happy, docile bear, reminiscent of the picture of one's eye holds for all anthropomorphic bears from Yogi to Winnie. The way I figured I was taking a bit of a holiday from life, so I could relax my fastidiously regimented daily schedule a little and allow for some frivolity. After all, I was going to be in Amsterdam come morning with 16 hours to kill before I had to be training Dutch employees. Maybe I would take a trip to one of the coffee shops in the red light district and really let my hair down. No, I wouldn't do that. I would see that area of the city from the bus as I went to the hotel, where I would eat at hotel restaurants and drink sparkling water. So I'd better enjoy the gummy bears once my extravagance to commemorate my break from routine. I joined the queue in the KLM line, which was mercifully short, most likely because all the passengers from my flight had already been checked through as the flight was scheduled to depart in an hour. I checked my watch again, frowned, and absentmindedly opened the bag of Haribo sugar-free gummy bears and began to munch on them as the line slowly advanced. To be fair, they tasted fine, just like every other manufacturer's brand of the colorful candy, and they were sugar-free to boot. This is what made the whole incident that followed so baffling. If they had tasted off or different, I most likely would not have continued to shovel them into my mouth, absent-mindedly while daydreaming about what I would order to eat from room service in my hotel in Amsterdam. As I gave the attendant my e-ticket and she weighed my bags, the first of the pains in my began in my stomach. I thought nothing of it at first, chalking it up to the fact that I needed something more substantial than gummy worms to tackle my hunger. But over the course of the next 5 minutes, the shooting pain began to come in a more rapid succession. At this point, I had broadcast pass printed and rubbing my stomach a little. I proceeded to security. I briefly entertained the thought of trying to find a restroom before going through security, but at that point, my discomfort was manageable, and I did not think it was getting any worse. Clearly not within the amount of time it would take to clear security. I joined the line, and I started fishing for my passports to present to the agent checking the tickets. I felt the thin sheen of sweat break out of my forehead and underarms. My features flushed for a moment as a wave of heat watched over me. I didn't pay it much heed, as going through security always caused me great anxiety, and I chalked it up to free flight jitters. It was only as I stood face to face with the agent and handed her my passport and ticket that I had a glimpse of the agony that was about to begin. It felt like time rippled for a moment, as if my consciousness buckled. So intense was the pain that fired through my bowels. I grimaced spastically and emitted a low moan, and felt myself take an involuntary step sideways. Stars shot through my head briefly, and my vision blurred and then snapped back into focus. The agent was staring at me with slight consternation and asked me if I was all right. I pulled myself together, stood up straight, and declared that I was fine, mortified that I had a lapse of decorum not only in public, but at the security clearance at an airport. As I fumbled off my belt to go through the metal detector, the pain in my stomach increased, and I practically had to sit on the floor to take my shoes off, terrified of what would happen if I bent in the middle to do it. It was becoming increasingly more evident to me that this wasn't just a stomach ache. No, this was something much worse. As a child, I had had a bout of diarrhea after my trip to Mexico with my family. Understandable. I remember the feeling of nausea that swept through me before my child self surrendered to the gas pains and parked myself on the toilet for an hour, shitting until I felt like I didn't have any bones left. And that's how I was feeling now. With several key differences. The pain was worse, and the sense of impending bowel movements was so formidable it gave me temporary amnesia. It took all of my willpower, all of it, to clench my butt cheeks together to prevent my sphincter from exploding. A sudden shock of pain racked my body, and I half wondered if I was going to give birth to a Tasmanian devil. The crazy, fever-induced image of said cartoon animal chasing Bugs Bunny through the splashy volcanic shit kettle that was my stomach caused me to elicit a short, maniacal bark of laughter as I approached the metal detector, a wild, distant look in my eyes. Sweat now beginning to pour off me like a long-distant runner in Kenya. The security agent on the other side of the detector shot a quick glance over to her co-worker, who narrowed his eyes and made subtle movements towards his holster. My breathing became uneven as I entered the metal detector, and I realized with alarm that I had taken off my socks without even registered it, and one of my shirt tails was untucked in the front. I held my breath, my eyes bulging dangerously from my head as the machine scanned me. As I shakily moved toward the agent for a pat-down, my stomach began to elicit sounds that can only be described as otherworldly. It started off a sort of bubbling sound heard from afar that grew in pitch and intensity with alarming rate. My jaw dropped in shock at what can only describe as the sound of an agonized, wailing alley cat in heat with a persistent Doppler effect added to its voice emitted from some nether region of my intestines. The officer's eyes widened in alarm, and she kept her eyes glued to my stomach as she thoroughly patted me down. As she reached my shins, I felt my innards suddenly expand and plummet towards my rectum. With cat-like reflexes, I squeezed my sphincter shut with what seemed like nanoseconds to spare. And I knew that if I did not get to the bathroom immediately, I would shit myself. With a Herculean effort and all of the strength that I could muster, I forced my butt cheeks together, knowing that one false move would open the floodgates. I began to walk like a duck, trying to remain as inconspicuous as possible, not even caring now that other people were seeing in front of them a disheveled, barefoot 40-year-old businessman, red-faced and bugly-eyed, sweating profusely, shaking slightly, and walking without bending his knees. With single-minded intensity, I grabbed my carry-on, shoes and socks, out of the plastic stub and passed the x-ray inspection, and without putting anything back on, I turned on my heels with the intention of finding the nearest restroom and slowly dying there, one squirt at a time. But that's not what happened. This is fucking wild. I turned to go, and I found myself staring at 3 armed agents who stopped me and asked if I would follow them. Oh no. Why? What's the matter? I stammered, wincing slightly as the act of speech seemed to strain the tenuous and extremely fragile truce I had negotiated between my bowels and the tempest that raged within. I have to go to the bathroom right now, I pleaded. Just follow us, please, they said, leaving no room for argument. The other travelers clearing the security check stared with curiosity and revulsion at the spectacle unfolding before them, whispering amongst themselves and hurrying back up their belongings to get as far away from me as possible. No doubt assuming that the airport had nabbed some sort of domestic terrorist. If I had not been feverishly trying to hold back the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, I likely would have died of shame. With each step I took towards the room they offered me into, I felt like my legs would give way. I marveled at how strong the human could be. Marvel that was essentially patching a hole in the Hoover Dam with bubblegum could actually be sustained indefinitely. Maybe I would make it through this ordeal after all. The room they brought me into was an examination room. I had pretty much stopped registering details of my environment as my consciousness closed off of all but the absolutely necessary functions. Breathing, ability to walk. But I snapped back to reality within I heard the snap of rubber. The slow dawning of realization poked through my agony and stoic resolve as I turned to face an agent putting on rubber gloves. Oh. Ooh. Sir, we are going to perform a cavity search on you. Oh no. A young, fresh-faced agent stated in a firm but emotionless voice. His short-cropped blonde hair was immaculate. And for a crazy moment, I wondered if he was an actor and this was some sort of elaborate practical joke done to amuse bored kids watching YouTube. He must have taken my torture silence for resistance because he looked at me sharply and said, "Lower your pants and underwear, please," and faced the desk. Panic started to grip me in its icy grasp, but the sudden adrenaline threatened to destroy my sphincter's bulwarks and rend my anus in two. I inhaled sharply with a pained gasp. I doubled up my efforts to clench my cheeks together. "Sir, please," I begged, deferring to the skit in an act of desperation. "I have to go to the bathroom. You can follow me into the stall if you need to, but I had some bad Haribo sugar-free gummy bears, and now I feel like..." But they had stopped listening and smirked at each other. Two of the other agents, a tall, dark-haired female and a shorter, balding, fat man, looked away from me, and I could see them shaking a little as they stifled their laughter. "Sir, face the wall and put your hands on the desk and spread your cheeks," the young agent stated, a lopsided grin on his face. "But..." I began to protest, and then a fresh shock of pain forced me to stop and lean on the table for support as an ungodly howling rose from my stomach. Something between the dying moans of a woolly mammoth and the sound of bubble wrap popping underwater. I exhaled shakily, and my focus began to narrow as I rallied for the final battle. Shaking uncontrollably, and sweat literally raining down onto the tabletop from me, I turned to face the wall and heard a meek, childlike voice pleading from somewhere in the room. "Please," it said again, "please." From somewhere within me, my mind recognized the sound had issued from me, as though my consciousness had now begun to separate from my body, and I held my breath and prayed to God for strength. He probably has something there up there that opened up. The female guard says, as my part of me that had not escaped into the ether yet acknowledged that she was behind me to my left. "Probably high as a kite. Look at him," she said. The shorter guard agreed with a snort off to my right. "Spread your cheeks," the young agent said, his voice directly behind me and lower than the other two, "and bend over. Please, God, please, God, please, God, please, God, please, please, please." I whispered in a desperate, maniacal mantra, not even aware of my surroundings anymore. I felt like I was lost in fog, with half-snatched images and sounds filtering through to create a nonsensical version of reality. Another volley of pain tore through me, and I involuntarily leaned forward over the desk. My focus completely narrowed by how now to a spot on the wall 2 feet in front of me. A curious imperfection in that what seemed to be whitewashed stone wall. It was a dark blotch, about 5 millimeters long and shaped like a smiling bear. A yellow dancing bear. No, a green bear. No, red. It was all the colors of the rainbow. My God, it was beautiful. It just took something as simple as a slight breeze to trigger Armageddon. That's all. No trumpets, no fanfare, no fire raining from the heavens, no dogs and cats living together in harmony. No finger on the button. No prophet to predict it. No, nothing. As I stared at the rainbow bears smiling and dancing in front of me, my mouth agape, drooling, eyes glazed and bloodshot, face coated with a sheen of sweat, I heard the softest sound, an exhalation, from the young agent behind me. And then, at the same instant, the warmth of his breath feathered across my butt cheeks. For just a moment, maybe less, maybe a split second, a nanosecond, I felt the presence of God there with me in that room. As neurons began to misfire at a blinding rate, nerve endings bristled and muscles twitched reflexively. I stood on the brink with one foot hovering over the edge. And then, without taking a step, I found myself plummeting. With a sound like an extra large plastic ketchup bottle being run over by a Mack truck, my sphincter released. The pressure of the blast pushed me hard into the desk, and the legs of the desk screeched as they scraped across the floor. My body remained rigid for a moment, and I experienced a relief that can only be described as orgasmic in its purity. My eyes rolled back. I've read Smut less detail than this. Rolled back in my head, and my tongue lolled out of my head like a R-word dog, and I emitted a low, sustained groan that grew in pitch as the filthy torrent pushed its way out of my body. Tremors racked my body, and I must have looked like a fish out of water, with an endless stream of shit firing out of its ass. Other sounds and sensations started to filter in now, as my consciousness began to materialize once more. The muffled scream of a dungeon filled with prisoners near death radiated from my stomach. The rushing sounds of liters of liquid trying to escape through an aperture too small to accommodate it. And all at the same time, the omnipresent sound of chunky liquid splattering against a hard surface with great force. The high-pitched screaming of a woman's voice calling out to God. Another voice sobbing uncontrollably, imploring to make it stop. And my own ecstatic, monotone wail. When my ordeal had eventually run its course, I was left panting for breath and wobbly-legged, half crying, half laughing with relief, barely lucid, and feeling as if I had birthed an elephant. My colon felt like someone had poured chili sauce all over it and then sent in a colony of fire ants to eat it. Through my sobs, I heard the sounds of dripping, like when sprinklers are eventually turned off after an office fire, or after a thunderstorm when the willow that overhangs a pond continues to rain down long after the sky has stopped. From behind me, the sobbing continued. And I heard someone trying to speak into a walkie-talkie, but nonsensical words were all that a man could speak. It sounded like the ravings of a lunatic. With great relief, I slowly pulled myself off the table, legs trembling, stomach eliciting one last sound, a long, prolonged gasp bubbling that eerily resembled a pig orgasm. I slowly turned my head to survey the devastation, and in that instant, if I had a pencil or some other sharp object, I probably would have gouged my eyes out in revulsion. And the smell. This smell was enough to drive a man insane. It was the stench of rotting potatoes mixed with sulfur and ammonia, cooked in a broth of chicken feces and left to age for 2 weeks in a yeastly stew at the bottom of a French outhouse. After half a whiff of this ghoulish brine, I immediately stopped breathing through my nose, but the taste was to remain in the back of my throat for months to come. The young agent had taken the brunt of the foul witch's brew. And at first I couldn't process what I was seeing. I thought somehow the young blonde kid had been spirited away and replaced with a brown golem, or an ATV rider that had spent the better part of a day driving through every mud puddle he could find after a torrential downpour. With some degree of compartmentalization, I came to understand that for some unfathomable reason, the kid hadn't moved, or hadn't been able to move through the entire fecal deluge. He had weathered an entire assault head on, like some sort of hero from Greek mythology. I had given this schmuck A one-man sheet hockey that would make even a Brazilian photographer retch with disgust. And he was still in the same position he must have been from the moment of first impact. I tried to comprehend how he must be feeling. What he must be going through psychologically. But it became evident very quickly that he had become very broken. No doubt forced so deeply within himself once the fire hose has been turned on that there was no hope for him ever coming back from it. Certainly not without an expensive psychotherapy or a lobotomy. I looked beyond his quivering, catatonic crouch form to see a perfect outline of him cut out on the white wall behind him. Either side filled with dripping, opaque layer of alternately pulpy and runny fecal stew. I noticed two quivering masses at the either extreme of the room, and they were humanoid in form. Although the caterwauling that was coming from these broken creatures was blubbering gibberish, as was the tableau that was burnt into my eye for eternity. Needless to say, I missed my flight. In fact, the next week was a blur. I have vague recollections of an army of hazmat-clad figures looming through the brown landscape of the soiled room. The slopping sounds of rubber boots squelching in puddles of fetid detritus. Uncontrollable wailing and animal-like sounds issuing from the mouths of creatures that had been traumatized beyond their capacity of being put back together. The complete loss of sensation from my waist down as I was rolled through the room on a waterproof gurney. Its wheels struggling to surf on top of the shit-soaked floor. I spent a week or so in the hospital, enclosed in a well-ventilated sealed room, with a suited doctor coming in the hour to monitor my vital signs as they tried to rehydrate my body. I had apparently expelled every available drop of water from my body that was possible to sustain life without a short period of time. All of my clothes were incinerated in the hospital's crematorium, and the soiled bag of Haribo sugar-free gummy bears was never recovered. This is my story. It's inconceivable to think that this kind of product can be sold legally and be misrepresented as food. I was lucky. I survived. But as for the families of the survivors and the survivors themselves, they will forever live with the trauma of the events that took place at Pearson International Airport on that snowy day in April 2013.
Like that's ever gonna happen. What a load.
Honestly, I had to really hold back to not fucking bust out laughing in the middle of that. Because, like, Hubby was losing his shit. Hubby was, like, fucking shaking from laughter behind me. He wanted to fucking find a bag of Haribo sugar-free gummy bears. So he was like, I want to get some. I want to try them out. And I was like, all right, you're gonna shit yourself, don't. And he was like, but you do it in a safe environment at home. And I was like, do not. He can't find any. And I had to tell him that they completely recalled the product. Oh, shit! That's rad! You know what else is rad? Gamer subs! Do you want energy? Do you want to be able to fight 20 people as one man? May I recommend trying out gamer subs? Yeah, fucking energy for days, baby! Laser focus, dodge, dodge, and you will exude pink fire if you get too excited. And it's pink because he used fucking code KinkyMation at checkout. 10% off, remember that. Ton of energy. And if you don't want energy because caffeine is spooky scary, they got you, baby boo. Caffeine-free flavors, sugar-free. Become a man. Be like a dragon. Be like Kiryu. Boom. Chill over. Anon's forays with fiber. Be fat. Go to fit and find a solution. Main problem is, I eat like a dumpster. Apparently, things with fiber, with loads of fiber, are going to save my filthy soul. Fiber is digested slowly, leaving you feeling full longer, and helps with digestion. Go out, buy 2 boxes of fiber-heavy breakfast bars. The first day, I have fiber bags for breakfast, lunch, and a lot of snacks. I don't shit that day. Side note, this isn't my experience. This is a copy pasta. I've never shit myself. I feel like I need to say this just in case. The next day, I fiber myself up even more. I don't shit that day either. Fiber Jesus is surely working his magic in my colon. I can feel the pounds dropping off because I'm not very hungry anymore. I don't shit the 3rd day. I don't shit the 4th day. The final day dawns. MP3. I have my morning coffee, and I feel my insides rumble in that familiar way. The second I hit the toilet, the weirdest fart in the world exits me. It's whistling. Just a thin, continuous airstream of fart that smells like Papa's coffin. No sound other than the whistling hiss. Suddenly stops. The hole is plugged. SOS. This shit is so solid, it feels like I'm giving an anal birth to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Hang on to the shower curtain and pray. The Rock is shot out of my asshole at match speed. My entire ass is covered in toilet water. Now the fun begins. A fart that could do more damage to the ozone layer than aerosol ever did is shooting shit bullets out of me. Solid, perfectly round nuggets! The smell is killing me. Blacking out. The thuds of nuggets shooting around the bowl, propelled by my insane Fibre flatulence, is giving me war flashbacks. I wasn't even in nam.jpg. My guts are yelling in German. Sounds like a moose in heat live in my belly. Most of the shit isn't even digested at this point. It's just forced out by all the gas that had been building up to my throat. After an hour, it finally seems to be over. I am shivering and crying. Both legs collapse as I try to stand up. My stomach hitting the bathroom tiles forces one last Gondor calls for aid. .rar. Shakily wipe my ass. Completely clean. The end. I thought Kiki-chan was more cute and slightly lewd when I think she's like poopy girl. I see how it is. Is all of your chat like this? You're all degenerates and Gizmo music. No, I swear to God, it's not always like this. These were just dramatic readings. They're really funny because for some reason, these stories are more detailed than a 30,000 word smut story from BJ to missionary to climax. Yeah, like, I've read smut with less detail than this. Like, why do I need to know the ins and outs of your colon? And why is it so fucking funny? That man accepted his fate. Okay, I have one more 4chan's post. But I think I'm gonna have to show you guys the picture to get some context. One last one, but it's not about poop, I think, I hope. This is Angela Anaconda Digivolve to Angela Mon. Didn't know at the time that my parents' relationship was rocky. I begged to see the Digimon movie. Parents agree, but don't realize it's for them to spend some time together as well. Get to theater and excited about the Digimon flick. Can even afford popcorn and drinks. Parents look happy. Angela Anaconda short comes on. My parents don't speak very good English. My little boy man can't comprehend what the fuck is going on. Parents are utterly confused by this Canadian fuck running around in a Digimon suit. I start crying, and they pull me out of the theater. Mom and Dad start blaming each other for going to the wrong film. Dad throws away the popcorn Mom wanted. Lots of arguing. I'm still crying. Get out of a parking lot and drive off in a rush. Get into an accident in the parking lot. Dad moves out a month later. Fucking bitch of a Angela Anaconda ruined my life. That escalated so fucking quickly. Holy shit. So were they in the right movie after all? Yeah, it was a short that played in front of like the actual film, I think. You guys have to understand that when a relationship gets to that point, anything at all,
Angela Mon!
will tip the scales. One of the bits of relationship advice that I will give to you guys is don't let resentment build up in your relationship. If you feel bad about something your partner did, or if your partner feels bad about something that you did, don't keep it in. That's how you build resentment. If you guys have an issue or a conflict, let it out. What if there's yelling? Doesn't matter. Sometimes yelling is good. You need to be able to discuss what happens in your relationship and talk about when you don't like something, because if you don't say anything, that behavior is going to repeat itself. And if that behavior repeats itself, resentment builds. Resentment is poison to a relationship. In this case, these parents probably had a shit ton of resentment towards each other, and this was like the incident that made the fucking like geyser fucking pop. Resentment will build up like the fiber bars in your colon. Chat, yes. So that's why if you are dating someone and you want to make it work, and you should always date someone with the intention of marrying them. Sorry, not sorry. Like, your intention with dating someone should not be a fling. It should be, I want to make it work with this person. Talk about everything. I shit you not, within like a week of dating hubby, he he was leaving my apartment. And like he stopped the elevator in his truck and I was like, I'm just gonna say this now, Lily. I love you. All right? And normally when someone tells you they love you after like a week, for most people that's a bit off-putting, but with him I just knew. And I was just like, me too. And then he left. And I was like, oh boy. So I had to process that. So like I knew very fairly on that I wanted to spend a lot of time with this goober that I ended up marrying. It was very, very sweet. Drops a love bomb, refuses to elaborate, leaves.